To reach new innovation milestones and empower true progress, we must keep an open mind, connect, and share knowledge. The first edition of the UNI.MINDS Festival showed us that the need to create a strong innovation ecosystem is urgent, and that openness and the desire to innovate are crucial in the never-ending quest for progress. With over 700 attendees and 149 speakers, our mission was to build a strong innovation community. Presenting the second edition of UNI.MINDS, the biggest Slovenian online festival created to connect academia and industry. The second edition of the festival will feature 3 days of online events dedicated to building the innovation community, creating long-term partnerships, and implementing the best innovation practices. Here, you can meet the right partners for your challenges. The festival will take place online from the 10th to the 12th of November, featuring an interdisciplinary program with best innovation practices, insight into the challenges facing the industry, and a presentation of new technologies and expertise from university researchers. For additional information, visit the festival website. We look forward to innovate together.
A very warm welcome to the second day of our UNI.MINDS Festival. My name is Simona Rataj, and I'm responsible for establishing connections between researchers and industry. Our festival is organized by University of Ljubljana and University of Maribor. And for the second year around, our main partner is Novartis Slovenia. The festival is co-financed by the Republic of Slovenia and the European Regional Development Fund. An interesting day is before us, and today we are hosting, we are hosting 9 companies active internationally and globally. They will represent us their innovation challenges and the topics of solutions they are searching for. The presentations, or you should consider these presentations as an opportunity for your new ideas, new research, new connections, and possibly new collaboration. And later on, we will get familiar with 4 organizations active as partners of technology transfer offices in the activity of international science communication. And let's start. Our first speaker is Phil Taylor. He is the global lead of open innovation at Bayer. His daily work is dedicated to managing R&D, research and development partnerships with researchers all over the world. And he is, of course, the right person to present us the topic Open Innovation at Bayer Crop Science. Phil, the stage is yours.
Thank you, Simona, for the very warm introduction. It's such a pleasure and a delight to be with you all this afternoon. I'm calling into the festival from the United States, from the Midwest, where it's 6 o'clock in the morning. So I've got my coffee, and I'm very ready to tell you a little bit about open innovation in crop science and some of the work that we're doing to think about the future of agriculture. I would absolutely encourage you to ask any questions that you have as I go through. I believe there's an opportunity to put them in the chat here, and then also an opportunity to connect later on the platform to talk one-on-one, which I'd be delighted to do with any of the participants here today. So maybe to sort of kick off a little bit about Bayer and a little bit about why we do what we do and the work that we're doing, but really driven by our purpose and strategy of health for all and hunger for none. And so for Bayer as a group, that means thinking across the spectrum of agriculture and crop science and the food side of things, but also healthcare, whether it's over-the-counter or prescription medications, with our consumer health and pharmaceutical divisions. And that's one of the things I'm particularly excited about working for Bayer at this moment in time, is really the combination of that healthcare and sick care angles that you get with an agriculture and healthcare company. We're really driven by innovation, and we're really driven by sustainability, and I'll share a little bit more on both of those topics in a moment. But really our hope is that we can think holistically about how we can support a growing planet, a growing population in a number of different ways. And I don't need to tell this group that innovation is utterly critical for doing that. To drill down a little bit into the sort of the crop science R&D, there's really a few different pillars here that are part of the R&D strategy. And really they come about the combination 3 years ago of the former Monsanto company, which I was a part of, and the Bayer group really brought together the world leaders in seeds and traits on the Monsanto side and the crop protection pieces on the Bayer side to create a combined company that really had expertise across the whole landscape of agriculture. And now the sort of advent and the development of digital farming and using data to drive decisions and activities on the farms around the world has really given a connection point for all of these things and brought them together into a very sort of, well, a convergence, I guess, of all the different types of R&D that's needed to set up the future of agriculture, ultimately the future of food. And so when we think about the types of science we're doing, the types of work we're doing, it's sort of all captured here in terms of the different pillars of our R&D: breeding, biotech, chemistry, biologicals, and how data, it's no coincidence that the strand running through the slide here is the color of the data piece that really shows how data is the aspect that pulls it all together. So when we think about partnerships and we think about science, these are the types of topics, these are the types of areas that we're looking into. And so if something, I'm not going to read through all the numbers on here, but if something here resonates with you, that's very exciting, and would love to talk some more. So to sort of put this into sort of a visual, to sort of make it sort of a little more real for you, this is one slide I particularly love to use. This is how agriculture is changing over the last 80 years or so. 80 years ago, you'll see on the right, that's the amount of space that was needed to grow 250 kilograms of corn, all the way over to the left there with all the advances that have been made in genetics, in crop protection, in production processes and equipment. We're able to produce a great deal more on a much smaller footprint and create a much tighter and greater opportunity for our grower customers and ultimately for consumers. But it doesn't really stop there. I think the recent activities and recent thinking around the world, and I think it's been highlighted very concretely over the last 2 weeks with all the activities at COP26 in Glasgow, is really making the case that sustainability and sustainable practices are absolutely critical to the activities and the work that's going on. And agriculture, I believe, has a significant role in being part of the solution to climate change and part of the really needs to be at the forefront of the conversation. And so Bayer Crop Science as a group about a year or so ago made some very significant sustainability commitments in terms of what we were looking to do, not only in terms of our own operation. We've committed to be net zero by 2030 as an organization, but also in terms of what we're enabling for our customers and for consumers. And so that's captured on the slide here, aligned with the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals. And we sort of colloquially sort of call these the 30-30-100, right, as a way to remember them. But our commitment to a 30% reduction in greenhouse gases emitted from agriculture has us thinking about all kinds of new products and all kinds of new ways that we can enable farmers to meet that number. A 30% reduction in the impact of crop protection. So whether that's greener chemistries, better technologies for application, more targeted and precise applications, there are a number of ways that we really can minimize that footprint. And then I think the one that resonates most with me is the opportunity that we have to engage with, or the goal we have set to engage with 100 million smallholder farmers around the world. Because when you think about agriculture, the majority of the people involved in it are farming less than 1 hectare, very much smallholder farmers in smaller countries in the world, mostly women, it turns out. And so there's a definite opportunity really to think about how as an organization we're engaging with agriculture writ large, not just sort of large operations. And so it really gives us the opportunity to change the conversation a little bit, and as well as thinking about innovation and thinking about the products that we want to create, put sustainability front and center and say, actually, we're looking to think about it from the perspective of sustainable innovations and sustainable technologies. It's also very clear to us as an organization, even though we have a large R&D base globally of around 7,000 scientists, we know we can't do all this by ourselves. We know that partnering and engaging with externals, be they academic, be they startup, is absolutely critical to our success and absolutely critical to both delivering the products that we've committed to in our pipeline, but also helping us think about the future, because as a large corporate organization, it's kind of tough for us to be nimble and be at the cutting edge of certain technologies. And we look to our academic partners, we look to our startup partners to really help us stretch us into new areas and into new opportunities as they come up. And so when we think about partnering, and sort of in the context of the discussion and the festival here, it really takes all forms. It's both partnerships and collaborations we have to think about incremental innovations, the things that are coming through the pipeline now, our germplasm upgrades, new traits, new active ingredients, new ways to do what we're doing better. But also it helps us think about those breakthrough innovations, whether it's gene editing or how biologicals are going to evolve, or data science or drones and UAVs, new ways to do things. We really think about it across the gamut of topics and projects that we have. And then on the flip side, our open innovation model is very diverse and takes all forms. I often get asked, what kind of partnerships do you like to have? And it's like, well, there's no answer to that, right? It's what is the best fit for us and the partner that we're looking to work with. And so whether that's a more standard collaboration where we, have a funded research or an activity to do some work together, whether it's a venture capital, we have a corporate venture capital within Bayer that's called the Leaps Group, Leaps by Bayer, who engage in VC activities in a targeted way to support the entire group, not just the crop science division. And then we engage with our customers and do customer-sponsored research. We have a large number of university and research institute partnerships, be they very targeted, a license here, a license there, all the way up to sort of a strategic framework with universities around the world. And then we engage very heavily in what we call crowdsourcing, and that's what I'm going to spend sort of the rest of my time here today talking to you a little bit about, but really thinking about how we can engage new partners in new ways and find partners that we haven't engaged with before and figure out how to work with them and do proof of concept work and start relationships in new ways that really bring new technologies and new opportunities to the organization that really can support our mission and our goals. And really, over the last couple of years, as we've built out our sort of crowdsourcing and true open innovation model, it's really been driven by the sort of thinking that's captured on the slide here. When you think back 10 or 20 years in agricultural partnering, it was a lot of licensing. It was a lot of large collaborations between companies that did, made big commitments with big investments and some venture. And over the last few years, I think as open innovation has taken root and as partnering has sort of changed, there's really a great deal more thinking now about co-creation, taking little steps together, doing little bits of opportunity that lead to something much bigger and not making these sort of large commitments. There's this more crowdsourcing enabling sort of approach, and really thinking about, as was captured in the introduction video a few moments ago, really thinking about innovation ecosystems and how more than one partner and more than a handful can come together to solve solutions and solve problems. And so I see that within a company is sort of changing the game, really, of moving large companies like ours from being, consumers of innovation operating in a very transactional way, all the way down to enablers of innovation, operating more in a behavior-based base. So it's my goal and my objective to sort of help Bayer help the ecosystem and find ways to engage and find ways to support that ultimately have value for our company and our customers, but really start with the question, what can Bayer do to kickstart and drive innovation in that sense? And so we have a number of activities and programs and events and sort of things that we've put in place over the last couple of years to enable that. And the sort of signature ones are captured here, where we really looked at what it was that we could do as an organization to share our objectives and kickstart innovation, outside. And so we do that through running a handful of different types of RFP, and I'll dig into those a little bit more in a minute. We've partnered with a number of external organizations, be they accelerators or venture capital groups, to run very specific challenges when we've had maybe a new area to get into that we don't know so much about. And we've been pretty active in building our own network and our own innovation ecosystem that at the end here, I'll invite you very much, would love for you to be a part of that as we go forward. But our three sort of key signature pieces here, as we think about it programmatically, are what we're calling the 4AG series. Our grants for ag, where we provide small amounts of funding, but it's completely unrestricted. and is designed to help a researcher take that first step into maybe applying an idea or applying a technology. We joke about it being the program that helps you get off the back of the napkin, right, and really put something into place to start an exercise or start an opportunity. Our Testing for Ag, which I'm very excited about, is a new program we're going to be launching early next year with the same open innovation concept, the same open innovation methodology, but instead of providing funding, we're actually opening the doors to our testing capabilities and our screening platforms that are based in Europe, in Lyon and Monheim and Frankfurt, where we're actually going to make available the testing capabilities and provide that data and say, if you have a compound that you think could be of value in agriculture, we'll generate some data for you and share it back. And then our Accelerate for Ag, which is really more focused on startups and spin-outs, where we're actually setting up to physically incubate startups adjacent to Bayer facilities. We've currently got this going on in 2 locations in West Sacramento, California, here in the States, and in Lyon, France, in Europe, but really thinking about that as a platform that we want to expand over time and maybe add a virtual component to it. So our goal here is really to have these different vehicles for you to be able to engage with us and make it very clear, which I hope is clear as I talk through this, that our door is open and we love to partner. We're looking to partner, and we're hoping to engage with you in a way that really provides a win-win scenario for both organizations. So maybe just to share a little bit more about the 3 programs here. Grants for Ag, we ran as a fully fledged program for the first time last year. And this is set up on the premise that, we put the call out, I think it was late, about maybe the fall of last year, and really invited researchers around the globe to submit their ideas for an innovation that could have impact in agriculture across the spectrum of topics and across the sort of areas of R&D that I touched on at the beginning of the talk here. We were really surprised with the response. We were literally overwhelmed by the response and really had a very tough time figuring out the 24 projects that we ended up funding last year. But the key to this is you're looking at it from the perspective of an academic researcher or a tech transfer office or someone who may engage in this, is the way that this is set up is beyond that application process, it's very low touch and it's a very sort of simple program from that perspective. Any data that you generate with the funding that comes from Bayer is yours. Any IP that can be generated from the data that you create or the work that you do is yours. It all stays with you. We're open to that conversation about a larger deal. We're open to that conversation about a follow-on partnership. But for the purpose of the Grants for Ag program, all we're saying is we'll give you the little bit of funding and you go and see what happens. And if the data is interesting and we decide to do some more work together, fantastic. If the data is interesting to you, but ultimately we don't do any work together, and it all stays with you. And that can be, you're free to publish, you're free to put it in a thesis or a grant application, use it as your lab or startup needs to advance their goals. And then a key sort of second feature to this that our awardees over the last year have appreciated is we also pair each participant up with a Bayer mentor. So one of our scientists within the organization who really can act as that point person, that conduit, that connection to really help you understand what we're doing as an organization. And in some cases, we've seen some very interesting tangents or new research started because of that connection and because of that conversation. So we're very excited about how this program's running. As I say, we ran it last year for the first time. We've just in the last few days figured out our 21 awardees for the 2022 cohort. So we'll be announcing that hopefully at a little sometime in early December. But really, I love this program just from the point of view that it gives me a good excuse to get out and talk to academics, around the world and figure out how we can help them. And it's as I say, it's a small amount of funding, but we've been really, really impressed and pleased with the results and the connections that we're able to make through it. There's a URL here as well that you can follow. If you can scribble it down, or maybe I'll try and put it in the chat at some point, just to connect with that, so you can follow along with that program as it goes forward. As I say, just to sort of highlight this, the other thing we did with our 24 awardees this year was actually started to have them interact as a cohort. And what we found is when you have 24 engaged, excited researchers across a broad number of disciplines, you put them on a call together, and within minutes, they're bouncing ideas off each other, and actually figuring out how they can support each other in their research. And so we've been delighted by that, and have been looking for ways to continue to support them, whether it's through standing up a seminar series for them to actually talk about their science publicly, or a career event, because one of the things we realized, a lot of the work that these grants are funding is actually being done by grad students or postdocs who may actually be interested in careers at Bayer down the line. And so we're setting up for a careers event with those earlier career folks sometime towards the end of the year. But really having them as a cohort and as a connection has been tremendously powerful. To talk about testing for ag for a minute, as I say, this is a new program that we're going to be launching right after the new year, sort of the second week of January, where we've arranged with our small molecule, our chemistry research teams in Europe to create a fairly significant amount of data from their very early, very high throughput screening platforms across the spectrum of pests, diseases, and weeds that we're able to generate data around that really could help seed new chemistries and new active ingredients in our pipeline. This is a critical area, particularly in Europe, of our research, to really think about the next generation of crop protection products, the next generation that will be more sustainable, more efficacious, and really looking to bring as many partners as we can to the table to solve this sort of critical problem. So we'll be putting the call out early in the year. We'll invite folks to submit their ideas and their compounds. We'll select the ones that we're able to test, and then over the course of 22, we'll generate that data. We'll share it back with those teams, and then use that as a conduit to follow on conversations and hopefully future deals down the road. But again, the same mentality as the grants for ag, in that any data that we generate is yours. It will come back to you. And any intellectual property you can generate will remain with you. We're taking no rights. We're putting no restrictions in place. So pretty excited to have this sort of open door and share what it is we care about and what it is we're doing to really ask questions about early opportunities in the chemistry space as well. And then finally, our Accelerate for Ag program that we're in the process of sort of, accelerating, ironically. It's in place, but we're looking to do more of it, is really centered around the idea that we would love to be more active in co-locating startups and spin-outs from universities with our R&D facilities. So as I say, we have this in place in West Sacramento, California. That's what the pictures captured on the slide here show, and also in Lyon, France. And so by doing that, what we find is we have an opportunity we learn a lot from the startups in terms of how they're operating, or the questions they're asking, or the work that they're doing. And they've given us feedback that it's been really beneficial for them as they think about their direction and they think about their focus, to have the opportunity to connect with us and learn and sort of co-create and be aware of what we're sort of focused on within agriculture. Sticking with startups, just to highlight two of the other challenges we've done this year that really have helped us get into new spaces and think about new areas for us as an R&D organization. But we partnered with a French company called Hello Tomorrow to run a challenge over the summer called The Future of Food. And this was an innovation challenge really centered on all things around the food chain, which is a little bit further down the value chain than sort of core agricultural R&D, where my background and my history has been. But it was really centered around topics around traceability and safety and transparency, and has really helped open up a whole new lines of research to really sort of start thinking about how we can provide value as an organization, all the way from the bag of seed that we're traditionally sort of known for, all the way down the food chain. So we very much enjoyed that engagement, and hope to do something similar to that again next year. And then a second with a venture capital organization based in California called SVG Ventures, we ran a sustainability challenge. And this was really the moment when we were able to put sustainability front and center in terms of the conversation, and thinking about innovation through that lens of sustainability, and engaging with startups that are really thinking about driving innovation in agriculture, driving step changes in what we're able to do, but through the lens of sustainability, and help agriculture be part of the climate change solution. And so we had two winners from that challenge, a startup and a scale up. The startup was a company called Haystack that's based in Boston. And the scale up was a company called Magro that's based in Ireland. that are really pioneering a couple of really interesting technologies, one in the carbon space, one in the sort of equipment spraying sort of space, that really have the potential to be tremendously impactful over time. So just a couple of examples there of how not only do we think about partnering on the academic side, but also on the startup side. And then the last thing I'd say is, I would love to connect, would love to hear your questions, would love to hear your thoughts about our programs. We're always trying to make them stronger, and so very much looking for that feedback and that engagement. So please do connect with me on LinkedIn or follow our page for our open innovation efforts, which is the Life Hub Crop Science. You'll see in the link here. And I think I'll be in the platform a little bit later this afternoon, and would love to connect and love to talk some more. And Simona, I think hopefully that's me right at time.
Perfect. You are perfect. We still have some time. So as we agreed, a few minutes to answer the questions. There's we have two questions till now. First one is the introduction of CRISPR. I hope I pronounced it right.
Yep.
In plant
Perfect.
breeding is opening up new approaches for crop improvement. Where do you think it is most effectively employed?
Yeah, that's a pertinent and good question. I think CRISPR-Cas obviously opens up a whole gamut of opportunities when you think about that ability to engineer either genes or even whole genomes. And so, for those who aren't familiar with it, CRISPR-Cas is actually a bacterial defense mechanism that's actually been employed now in both agriculture and healthcare to think about sort of genetic therapies or changing genes and gene editing, sort of we call it. And so really, I think about that in a couple different ways. I think about the opportunity to introduce traits and introduce sort of changes in individual genes where either the economics and the scale of it and the regulatory burden has been too high for traditional sort of transgenics and GMOs. And so there's an opportunity there, but also I see it as an opportunity to really think more broadly about, I don't say genome engineering, but really thinking about how we can really make substantial changes in how genomics is done and how breeding takes place. And so from a company perspective, our sort of gene editing strategies really sit across the whole gamut, right? It's really a foundational pillar across all of them. But I think the greatest impact could be in getting some of these great innovations that have really been limited to very large, broad acre, big money crops, if you will, into some of these smaller areas that could have a strong impact for smallholder farmers around the world who may not grow corn or soybeans, but also thinking about how it could really change the face of genomics and genomic selection. So I know not a great answer, because I think it really could be deployed everywhere, and we're not quite there yet. But I think it's going to be a great opportunity in the future.
Mm-hmm. Second is the comment that one of our participants likes how your collaboration is no strings attached in terms of IP and ownership of the results. So thumbs up. And we got the third question. How important are failures in the process of developing ideas, in your opinion?
I mean, my opinion, they're absolutely critical, right? If you're not failing, you're not trying hard enough. And so to me, do all our partnerships and collaborations succeed? Absolutely not. But I think the trick is positioning them and setting them up in such a way where the learning is valuable, the connection is valuable, and maybe, yes, even if the activity we worked on was not successful, if there's the appropriate transparency and the appropriate connection through that process, then it leaves the door open to the next opportunity and the next question. So I look at it much less from a success failure sort of perspective, even though obviously that's important. But I think about it more through the lens of, are we setting ourselves up to learn? And are we setting ourselves up to make a good decision about the science and the work that we might want to do together? And I think that creates the right environment for partnership.
Yeah, and yes, I totally agree with you. This is the basis for long-term partnerships and open, respectful partnerships. So thank you very much, Phil. I think that now we've come up to the end of this session. As already promised, Phil will be available for R2B meetings later on. So you can pop into his table and then talk about more into detail. And now I would all like to ask you to join us to the next session when we will present challenges of companies, 5 Slovenian companies, and please get to the new session successfully. Thank you very much. Phil, you're perfect.
Thank you.
See you later. Yeah.